She said, "If you're just going to sit there silently, maybe you should leave." I smiled and walked out without a word. She was laughing until the server returned with something that no one expected: throwaway account, because my ex and her friends know my main. This happened a few months ago, but it's been replaying in my head ever since. I, 34M, was dating Emily, 29F, for about a year and a half. She was beautiful, witty, and the kind of person who could charm an entire room without even trying. Everyone loved her: waiters, Uber drivers, my coworkers. And for a while, I did too. The first time I noticed something off was at a friend's birthday dinner. We were sitting with her friends, a loud, fast-talking group that thrived on sarcasm and banter. Every joke had to land harder than the last. Every story was a competition. I've never been the loudest person in the room. I prefer to listen. I like watching people, picking up small details. How someone's tone changes when they're nervous, or how they hold their glass when they lie. I used to joke that Emily's world was noise and mine was subtitles. That night, she was in her element, laughing, tossing her hair, throwing playful insults at everyone around her. I didn't mind it at first, but then she started aiming them at me. "Oh, don't mind him," she told her friend Jenna. "He's quiet because he's calculating how to correct your grammar later." Everyone laughed. I smiled politely. She leaned over and whispered, "Come on, lighten up. Babe, it's a joke." I let it slide. But then came another, and another. Ryan doesn't talk much. He communicates through long sighs and disappointed glances. Ryan's probably writing an essay in his head about how immature we are. Each one landed a little harder. And the worst part? Her friends started joining in. They didn't even know me, but they followed her lead like it was a game. By the time the entrees arrived, I was done talking. I just stared at my plate, quietly eating, occasionally forcing a smile when someone looked my way. That's when Emily rolled her eyes dramatically and said, loud enough for the whole table to hear, "If you're just going to sit there silently, maybe you should leave." The table laughed again, and something inside me just clicked. Not in anger, not in humiliation, just clarity. I set down my fork, took a sip of water, and said calmly, "You're right." I smiled, genuinely, and stood up. Her laughter faltered. "Wait, you're actually—" But I didn't say another word. I just put my napkin on the table, nodded to the group, and walked out. The air outside was cold. Sharp, even. But for the first time in months, I could breathe. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I just walked home, changed out of my dress shirt, and sat on my balcony in silence. Funny, she always said silence made her uncomfortable. To me, it sounded like peace. The next morning, I woke up to 5 missed calls and a few texts. "Seriously? You just walked out. You embarrassed me in front of my friends." It was a joke. Grow up. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the same restaurant later that afternoon. I'd known the owner for years. I did some freelance web work for his business. I asked if I could pay for last night's bill in full, including a hefty tip for the staff. When he handed me the receipt, I smiled and said, "Actually, can I add one small thing?" He raised an eyebrow. "Depends on what kind of thing." "Just a note," I said. He grinned. "You've got that look. Someone's about to learn a lesson." That night, Emily and her friends went back to the same restaurant, their usual Friday night hangout. I know because Jenna posted an Instagram story. Boomerangs of wine glasses clinking, emojis, captions like, "Girls' Night Redemption wine glass nail polish." But this time, the laughter didn't last. According to the server, a guy I knew, right after they finished ordering, he returned with an envelope. My handwriting on the front. Inside was the printed restaurant receipt from the night before. Paid in full. Tip, $200. And below it, the note I'd written: "Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the only thing loud enough to end the noise." He said the table went dead quiet. Emily tried to laugh it off, but her friends just stared at her. When she finally texted me later that night, it wasn't angry. It was something worse. Confused. Hesitant. "Did you pay for our dinner last night? Was that note from you?" I read it, locked my phone, and went back to my book. Didn't reply. Because sometimes, no response is the response that it's been 3 weeks since that night at the restaurant. 3 weeks since I walked out, paid the bill, and let silence do the talking. You'd think after a year and a half together, she'd try to move on quickly. But I guess ego doesn't heal as fast as heartbreak. The first week, she spammed me with messages. Not apologizing, not really. Just deflecting. "You embarrassed me in front of my friends." You overreacted. I was just joking. Then came the I miss you phase. Then the let's just talk one. Then silence. I thought that was it. But I underestimated how much Emily needed control. Not love, not closure, control. A mutual friend, Lisa, texted me. Hey, just so you know, Emily's been talking about you a lot. She says you're being dramatic for attention. I just sent a thumbs up emoji. But Lisa added, she also said she might drop by your place to get her stuff. Just a heads up. Her stuff amounted to a sweatshirt and a toothbrush. But sure enough, 2 days later, there she was, standing at my door, looking smaller than I remembered. She smiled that soft, familiar smile. Hey, stranger. I didn't invite her in. I just leaned against the doorframe. I just came to grab a few things, she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. And maybe talk? I nodded slowly, then stepped aside. She walked in, looking around my apartment like it was some museum of a past life. Same couch, same lamp, same framed photo of us, though I turned it face down weeks ago. She noticed that immediately. So that's how it is? She said with a half laugh, half sigh. I didn't answer. She sat down, crossed her legs, and said quietly, I miss you, Ryan. There it was, the thing I used to crave hearing. But now, it just sounded empty. You miss me, I said, or you miss knowing someone's there when the noise stops. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? You only ever liked me when I made you look better, when I was quiet enough for you to shine. The moment I stopped playing along, you turned it into a joke. Her eyes dropped. For once, she didn't have a comeback. I didn't mean to make you feel small, she said. It was just how we talked. My friends. I interrupted softly. Your friends don't define how you treat people. That hit her. I could see it. She took a deep breath. I've been thinking about that night. You walking out like that. It made me realize how cruel I sounded. I was drunk and showing off. You didn't deserve it. For a second, I almost believed her. Her tone was softer, her eyes genuine. But then she said, I told everyone we were taking a break, by the way. Maybe we can. I stopped her right there. Emily, I said, you told everyone we were taking a break? She blinked, confused. Well, yeah. I didn't want people to think we broke up over a stupid argument. I smiled. See, that's the problem. You care more about what people think happened than what actually happened. She sat there in silence. And for once, she couldn't fill it with laughter. I grabbed the folded sweatshirt she'd left behind and handed it to her. Here's your stuff. Her eyes flickered between the sweatshirt and me. So that's it. That's it. She stood up, holding back something between anger and regret. Wow, she said, forcing a laugh. You really are cold. I looked her in the eyes. No, Emily. I'm just finally warm enough not to need your fire. A few days later, a new post appeared on her Instagram. A photo of her smiling at brunch with friends, captioned, Healing Red Heart Adhesive Bandage Sparkles. Typical. But what made me pause wasn't the post itself. It was the comments. Her own friends, the same ones who laughed that night, were quiet. Only one or two left polite emojis. The rest said nothing, because they were there when I walked out. They saw her humiliate someone who never raised his voice. And people remember that kind of thing. Reputation is like glass. It doesn't shatter all at once. It cracks slowly from the inside. Meanwhile, I started seeing someone new. Her name's Claire. Met her at a local photography meetup. Funny enough, she's quiet too, but not in a sad way. It's the kind of quiet that listens, that sees. When I told her the story, the restaurant, the note, the silence, she didn't say, she didn't deserve you. She just said, you must have been hurting a lot to stay that long. That's when I knew she got it. Last weekend, I went back to that same restaurant with Claire. Different table, different energy. Halfway through dinner, I saw a familiar group walk in, Emily and her friends. She froze when she saw me. I didn't flinch, just smiled politely and turned back to Claire. The server, the same one from before, gave me a knowing nod. Later, when the bill came, I left another note. Not for Emily this time, but for the universe, maybe. When silence leaves, don't chase the noise that replaced it. I didn't look back as we walked out that it's been almost 4 months since that night. Since the silence became louder than any argument ever could. Life has a strange rhythm when you stop trying to fix people who never intended to meet you halfway. It's quieter, yes, but it's peaceful. Claire and I had grown closer. We weren't racing toward labels or milestones, just existing together, without fear of judgment or performance. Her laughter didn't fill the silence, it flowed with it. But peace never lasts long when the past refuses to die quietly. It started with a message request on Instagram. From Emily. I saw your photos. You look happy. I'm glad, really. I just wish we ended differently. I didn't reply. Then a day later. I've been going to therapy. I realize how toxic I was to you. I'd like to make things right, not to get you back, just to apologize properly. It felt sincere, but I'd learned that sincerity doesn't erase patterns. It only hides them until the next test. Still, closure can be a quiet kind of kindness, so I agreed to meet. Public place, broad daylight. We met at a coffee shop near the river, one we used to visit after long walks, back when we still believed small talk could save big feelings. She looked different. Not worse, just smaller, like someone who'd been fighting shadows for months. Hey, she said softly, almost afraid to meet my eyes. Hey, she smiled faintly. You look good. Thanks. You too. There was a pause, that familiar, awkward one where the air feels heavy with what's not being said. She stirred her coffee unnecessarily. I wanted to say sorry. For that night. For making fun of you. For turning something real into entertainment. I nodded. Thank you. She sighed. I don't think I realized what I had until I lost it. You were calm. Kind. Too calm, maybe. I thought it meant you didn't care. I stayed silent. She continued. Now I see that you were just tired of fighting to be heard. That caught me off guard. It was the first time she'd ever said something true without twisting it into self-defense. Then she looked at me, eyes glossy. Are you seeing someone? I hesitated a moment, then said, yeah, her name's Claire. She swallowed hard, but smiled anyway. She's lucky. Maybe, I said. But so am I. Her composure cracked for a second, a flash of jealousy, grief, regret. Not dramatic, not loud, just real. She nodded, then whispered, I didn't come here to win you back. I just wanted to know if I ever mattered. That question hung between us like smoke. I took a breath. You did. But I mattered too. And that's something I forgot while trying to make you happy. Tears finally spilled from her eyes. She didn't try to hide them this time. You really changed, she said. I just stopped explaining myself to people who enjoyed misunderstanding me. I replied quietly. We talked a bit longer, about neutral things, work, mutual friends, life. But there was a heaviness in her posture, the kind of weight that comes from finally seeing the cost of your own actions. As we stood to leave, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. I wrote you something, she said. It's not a letter to get you back, just something I needed to say, on paper. I took it and nodded. Thank you. She smiled, faintly. I'm really glad you're happy, Ryan. Truly. And then she walked away. No tears. No scenes. Just quiet steps fading into the crowd. That night, I opened the letter. It wasn't long. Just a few handwritten lines. You were right. I didn't want love. I wanted attention. You gave me stability, and I mistook it for boredom. I hope you never let anyone shrink your peace again. I'm sorry it took losing you to understand silence doesn't mean weakness. Emily. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. Sometimes, closure doesn't come from the other person changing. It comes from realizing you no longer need to prove your worth to them. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. I received a message from that same restaurant's manager, the one from that night. Hey Ryan, we're doing a small customer appreciation event for loyal guests, and your name came up. We'd love to have you attend. I laughed. The universe really loved its full circle moments. I told Claire about it, and she smiled. Let's go. Sounds poetic. She was right. We went. And that's where everything came together. The peace, the past, the realization. In one quiet, symbolic scene. The evening air outside the restaurant smelled exactly the same as that night. Warm garlic, rain on concrete, faint city noise blending with laughter from inside. But this time, I wasn't walking in alone, numb and silent. Claire walked beside me, her hand resting lightly in mine. She was wearing a simple navy dress, hair pulled back, smile calm but curious. This is the place? She asked as we reached the entrance. Yeah, I said, where everything sort of ended. She looked at me, not pitying, not judgmental, just understanding. Then maybe it's where everything should come full circle. I smiled. That's exactly what I was thinking. We walked inside. The same soft jazz played through the speakers. The same server, the one who had delivered the champagne that night, was still there, though he looked a little older, maybe just a little more tired. He looked up as we approached and blinked in recognition. Wait, you're... I laughed. Yeah, I was here once before. His eyes widened. Right. The woman with the group of friends. Yeah, I said again, still smiling. That one. He looked awkward. That night was something. It was, I agreed. Claire tilted her head. What happened here? The waiter opened his mouth, then hesitated. Should I? It's fine, I said. She knows. He exhaled in relief. Well, in that case, welcome back. We sat at the same table. It was surreal, like stepping into a photograph, one I'd spent months trying to forget. Back then, I had sat quietly while people laughed at me. Laughed because I was calm, quiet, unwilling to play their game. Now, I sat in the same chair, same lighting, same music, and felt nothing but peace. Claire reached across the table and touched my hand. You okay? Yeah, I said, looking around. Better than okay. It's strange, it doesn't hurt anymore. She smiled softly. That's how you know you've healed. When you can revisit the pain and it doesn't recognize you anymore. The waiter came by and poured us both a glass of champagne. This one's on the house, he said, smiling knowingly. You deserve a better memory here. I raised my glass. To better memories. We clinked glasses. The first sip burned slightly. Familiar, sharp, nostalgic. But instead of regret, I felt closure. Halfway through dinner, Claire excused herself to take a call. I sat alone for a moment, watching the restaurant's reflection in the big window by our table. That's when I saw her. Emily. She was standing near the bar, in a black dress, hair shorter, posture stiffer. She hadn't noticed me yet. She was there with someone else, a man who looked vaguely uncomfortable, scrolling through his phone while she laughed too loudly at nothing. Our eyes met. It was only for a second, but it was enough. Recognition. Shock. A quick flicker of something that looked a lot like regret. She looked away first. I didn't feel anger. Not even satisfaction. Just stillness. The kind that comes when you realize the story that once consumed you is finally over, and that you don't need an audience to feel free. Claire returned, noticed my expression, and followed my gaze. Oh, she murmured. Is that her? Yeah. Do you want to leave? I smiled. No. I think I'll stay. It's her turn to sit through the silence. Claire smiled gently, squeezed my hand, and didn't say another word. A few minutes later, as we were finishing dessert, the waiter returned. There's a note for you, he said, placing a small folded napkin beside my plate. The lady at the bar asked me to give it to you. I opened it. One line, written hastily in her familiar handwriting. I never realized how quiet the world gets when the wrong people stop clapping. I read it once, folded it, and placed it under my glass. Claire looked at me curiously. What did it say? Nothing that matters anymore, I said. And for the first time since that night, I truly meant it. When we left the restaurant, the sky had opened up, rain coming down softly, reflecting the lights on the street. Claire held out her hand, laughing. You brought me to the scene of your heartbreak, and it's still romantic somehow. I chuckled, slipping my jacket over her shoulders. Guess it's about who you're with, not where you've been. We walked down the wet sidewalk, our reflections rippling in the puddles, laughter echoing between buildings. And behind us, in the restaurant window, Emily sat alone, staring at her untouched drink, watching the door we'd just walked through. I didn't look back, because when you've made peace with your past, you don't need revenge. You just need to keep walking forward, quietly, confidently, without apology. The silence that used to hurt had become my freedom. And that night, under the rain, with Claire's hand in mine, I finally understood. Sometimes, the most powerful words are the ones you never have to say again.